Hello. Welcome to the April 4th Town Hall. I'm Corey, your host as always. Strange feedback. It's fun. Here, let's change that over to try that. Let's see. Let's see. First off, a couple IFT announcements. Waku had an internal hackathon. I'll bring up the. First off, a couple IFT announcements. This is strange. Waku had an internal hackathon. I'll bring up. Is anyone else getting the feedback? Or is that just me? Christian, you got feedback on your end?
That is all you.
It's all me? That is so strange. Okay, whatever. And I'll just deal. Oh, they can hear it too. Cool. They hear it.
Okay. Well, I don't know why I can't hear it. I'm just lucky, I guess. So.
Oh, they can hear it too. Cool. They hear it.
Well, I don't know why I can't hear it. I'm just lucky, I guess. So.
Oh, I know why. Because I'm watching the YouTube like a moron. Sorry. There we go. That's all fixed. I was watching the YouTube channel on a separate window. There we go. Cool. So, going to starting over. Hi, I'm Corey. Welcome to the Town Hall, April 4th. Starting out, a couple IFT announcements. Waku had a hackathon. Go check it out. It was an internal hackathon this time. So, not everyone got to be involved, which is a bit unfortunate. But starting out, it's good. It's a really, really interesting way to kind of start getting dog fooding and checking out different ways to build off of JS Waku. See the link here. This is in the Town Hall channel for those who are contributors if you'd like to get access to it. It should also be in the description of the YouTube eventually if it's not there already. But I was a part of one of the judges of the sessions, second judging sessions, and I was really impressed with the amount of work that went into it. Great ideas on how to use Waku, how to improve Waku, how to build on top of Waku. So I recommend everyone go after that. And the progressive next subsequent sessions of doing these hackathons, whether it be Waku or something else, we'll start including more and more people, internal CCs, the public, whatever. So that was really, really awesome. And additionally, I would like to. This should be. Where did it go? I had a questionnaire in the IFT announcements somewhere. I don't know where it went. But for those of you who haven't filled it out, there's an all hands questionnaire that we sent out. I would love it if you'd go and fill it out so that I can try and make sure that the agenda and schedule is as inclusive to what everybody wants as possible. I only have about 22 people who filled it out so far, and I know there's like 175 people going. So if you don't fill it out, I can't give you what you want. Up next, we got JB coming on. He wants to go over some of the engagement survey updates that we've gone through recently and then give some shout outs to core contributors.
Okay. You are muted. There you go.
There I am. Hey, and can everyone see the screen? My first time doing this. Yeah, there we go. Cool. Hey, everyone. Hope your Friday's doing well. I am JB from the People Ops team, and I have two very quick updates for you today. So I'll start to rattle through. So one, on our engagement survey, just to catch everyone up, we do an engagement survey every 3 months where we send a bunch of questions, standard questions on how contributors are feeling, how they're experiencing, working with IFT and their peers. And as Elmo says here, just kind of checking in and seeing how everyone's doing. And so I wanted to take some time just to give you some kind of the highlight reel, if that is the right way. Okay, so overall, these scores are out of 10. We're actually, sorry, my phone keeps on pinging. Turn that off. Overall, out of 10, we're actually doing really well. Engagement in the org is really high when we compare it to benchmark. And so benchmark here is other tech companies, not just Web3, but all tech companies. And so you can see we've got a score of 8.3, which is great. And we score about half a point above the kind of the benchmark. And then on the right-hand side, you can see Vast majority of the org and people that work here are net promoters. We have, as you'd expect, some kind of more passive folks. And sadly, we do have a small number of kind of detractors when people feel about engagement with the org. Then I will go on. So this slide shows you essentially the scores for the organization broken down by a bunch of drivers and different subcategories. I'll give just 10 seconds people to take a look. The left-hand side is the driver. Our score is in the middle. And on the right-hand side, you'll see our scores to benchmark. So we're actually more positive than all of our benchmarks across the board. But particularly, we score highly in autonomy, in organizational fit, meaningful work, growth, and reward. And so they're the areas that the org is doing really well. And then you can see the other scores are still pretty high and positive to benchmark, but they're things where we don't score quite as highly. And so I wanted to say at the time, everyone always focuses on the low scores and how we can improve them. So I thought we'd just do a quick look at what is our lowest scoring area, which is strategy. And strategy is actually broken down into a couple of different questions in the survey. And so it's actually really useful just to look at the specific question responses. In terms of mission, most of the org are really inspired by the purpose of the mission. We get a good score there, 8.9 out of 10, which is fab. The area we actually let ourselves down a little bit, or where it contributors are telling us that we need to do better, is actually communicating the goals and the strategies set by the org and set for the org. So that's an area that the kind of the leadership group and Carl and Jared have been talking about. I think with Corey revamping the town halls with our upcoming meeting in Croatia, we should be able to make some good progress and help people on that one. And so that is a kind of really quick run through of the engagement survey. The engagement survey and the results I've displayed are only as good as the feedback you give us and taking the time. The survey takes about 5 to 10 minutes to fill in, and the next survey launches on Monday, the 5th of May. So please take 5 to 10 minutes after the all hands and we've had a great time, complete the survey, and then I promise that we'll share the results in the People Up channel. And if we want to, we can do another kind of quick wrap up of the feedback and how everyone's feeling and how everything's changed. Okay. And so on to my next topic. We were talking to the People Ops team about how we can be better at recognizing some of the great work that contributors are doing and how we can just give people a bit more kind of visibility of some of the great work going on. So we're going to try this this week. If it works, we can do it again. We just want to recognize and celebrate some of the great work that's going on. I've got a collection of kind of shout outs and great work messages for people. I'm not going to read through the slide in detail, so I'll give people kind of 10 seconds to do that. And then we'll try and do this more regularly going forward. So the first shout out is for Alisha on the Status Design team. I'll let people read through, but sounds like he's doing a great job on the team, always helping to support the team and going above and beyond. So great job, Alisha. The next shout out was for Richard on the VAC team. Again, sounds like he's doing great work. The team are really appreciating the work and yeah, just great work, Richard. And then on to Arseni in the WACU team. Again, he's been doing some great work recently and just the team wanted to take some time to recognize that and say thank you to him. And David in the Nomos team, again, always going the extra mile and helping team members and supporting each other. So great work, David. And a final thank you and well done to the whole of the core accounting team and the finance group. I know they love memes, so I put one in here. They've been doing a big piece of work around automating some of the pay runs recently. I think it's been a lot of work, a lot of kind of manual accounting, and they've done a great job. So Adam wanted to say, and everyone wanted to say, well done to the finance team and the core accounting team. Great job, guys. Okay, and so two requests from me. If you're working with someone that's done a great job, just tell them. Say thanks, say well done. Sometimes that goes a long way. And if you like, we can do these kind of shout outs more regularly in town halls. And so if you have a thank you or a shout out for someone, ping it across the People Ops and we'll make sure it gets included in a town hall coming soon. Great. Thanks everyone and have a good rest of your town hall.
Heck yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, so I think there's so many other people to shout out to. I think we could spend an entire town hall talking about all the great stuff that happens across the board. I'm going to do a little bit of that with the rest of this town hall. So going through what we have planned here, let's go ahead and bring in Leonard and Ashlyn to go a little over some project reporting with the focus on what doneness means and the metrics. So what we're thinking about in terms of insights and how finance is partially involved with that.
So can you hear me? Shout if you can. And can you see my screen? All right, cool, excellent. So we're going to take a little bit of a journey back in time here, first of all, and talk about, I guess, June last year, the introduction of milestones, the introduction of kind of tracking of those milestones, and how that was conceived and executed in H2 of 2024, where we had a focus on, for example, hopefully you can see my screen. Our big focus was to focus on projects, linking projects to, for example, products. So, for example, I mentioned Codex, linking from those projects back to budget and commitments. And we have Ashlyn here from finance as well to affirm that that process is up and running. We introduced the milestones, folks captured those milestones and said, hey, well, here's what we're going to do. And we started that in H2 of 2024. I joined looking at this effort in Q4, and we started to talk about precision and metrics. We introduced FERPs. Anybody who doesn't know FERPs, it's designed by Hewlett Packard back in the late part of last century, and it was focusing on functionals, usability, reliability, performance, and supportability. So getting more precise and focusing on, as we said here, doneness, linking that again to the actual products and projects again, pulling up milestones, and again the theme here being milestones being a time event and targeting those milestones with particular pieces of delivery. Again, looking at, I've mentioned Waco here, first project to come up with a set of verbs, even for the work that was ongoing in H2 of 24. So well done, guys. Everybody else chimed in. We met in Bangkok. We talked to folks. They adopted it, started to bring it in. We now believe we're at 75% of adoption in terms of people knowing where they are from a FERPS perspective. Again, linked to a budget and a commitment. In other words, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do these functionals, these usabilities, this piece of reliability and performance, and we're doing this piece of supportability. We introduced it, and we are still refining that and improving it. So that was kind of, I guess, end of last year, we bedded it in. In January, thanks, Jared, folks, we had a new vision for Logos. And in that vision for Logos, we suddenly realized we're looking at things from the network state perspective, grander vision. But yes, we have milestones and we have projects, and we have to find a way of reflecting value we're going to expose in terms of a new language of journeys and use cases. Again, this is a proposal, and proposals take time to iterate through, refine, but ultimately we are starting to look at how we can build products and expose that value with investment against milestones. Okay, so we now have that vision, and as I say here, we talk about let's get slicing. And what I mean by slicing is we actually work with our leadership, our folks, and we say, well, what does a particular product vision look to you? What's the network state? What's that really manifested? How are we going to rework certain components to create a framework that exposes the values, the principles that we have, but also deliver a really good developer experience for the folks who might build on top of the Logos platform or stack. So I've actually taken a little bit of a traditional view here. So over here on the left-hand side, you see this new vision for Logos. Well, let's look a little bit the old world, first of all. What would we do if we were going to develop a product? Okay, we'd talk about personas. Anyway, it took me about 2 minutes to create these post-its, take a photograph, and capture them, upload them to this board. It was pretty good. But we generally talk about the building blocks, what they look like, what's the communications, what are the back and forth, what are the oracles, what are the chains, is it RPCs, are there services, what's the top board of it going to look like, how could people interact with it? And this is historic, so just a bit of a framing here. So we realize that we still like to work with post-its, we still look to traditional, we talk about components, we talk about blocks, building blocks, course blocks, before we get to the detail. So taking that principle as an ideal way, I've just put this together and said, okay, let's see what that really means. So we've asked Jared, for example, to help us to capture some of the use cases. We've also spoke about the journeys. And the journey from Logos for us at the moment is the concept of making folks aware of what we're doing. Yeah. First interaction. What's it going to look like? How do we increase adoption? And then how do we keep people? And then how do people spread the word that Logos as a stack is really what we're trying to implement, and taking the feedback along the way through AMAs, town halls like this, and meetups and hubs. Okay, so we start to look at the applications and we say, okay, those are the journeys I've outlined around awareness all the way through to advocacy, retention. Well, what are we doing in the middle of it? We're trying to look at the use cases that apply to each of those journeys. So how would be a good way for folks to interact with Logos Stack? All right, we create a sample application. But even to create an application, as we saw in my post-its, we have to build things. We have to create realizations of that journey. Okay, and ultimately, we've also got to break it down and see, can we do it? Have we got the resources to do it? So what I've done here is taken a very simple example of, hey, we're talking about awareness. Let's talk about the use cases. Let's talk about the course components. Let's talk about subcomponents. And ultimately, let's talk about modules and linking those modules even back as far as the milestones. So we slice things up and we eventually get to a world where people start to understand course things, course things and the building blocks. And we start to talk about those. What's actually going to be required from the projects? Because we have a lot of work we've done already. Have we got a catalog of modules that we could build a front application to meet one of those use cases? So our goal is, in the first stage, is to kind of position what we have in terms of what it does. Is it ready for an app to be built on top of it? And if it's not ready, of course, we got to bring it to completion. So there's a journey that even an existing piece of software has to go through to participate and to be good enough, I guess, to be part of this application here that we've just sketched. Okay, we want to build a DeFi app, for example. We need to have services available. We need to have stores. We need to have interaction with a chain. And ultimately, what that boils down to in the Logos design document is a set of modules that can be loaded in via the proposed microkernel, for example, and ultimately that we can reach the WAKU, the chat protocol, we can reach the storage protocol, and we can utilize, for example, the privacy that's provided by Nomos in this example here, for example, right? So I'm just going to move on now to how do we take this forward? Let's scale out a little bit here. So we've looked at the simplified view. We've looked at the vision, the original framing of where we were. We looked quickly at the vision for Logos in terms of the network state vision and the ability to, I guess, to lock down on the principles of privacy, censorship resistance, and basically we can actually build these components. Now, if we go to the functional layer here, functional layer is, well, we know what we want to build now. We've sketched it out. But what does it really mean? So on the left-hand side here, let's see, we've got the concept of having our journey and our use case. So the green one is the one we're actually going to simulate building here today, really quickly. So we've had the post-its. We want to build a voting app. Really good use case for a new stack, which assures privacy, censorship resistance, anti-surveillance, wouldn't you think? So what do we need to do that? Well, we now know what we need. So let's talk about these big post-its, the kernel, the Logos core, and potentially the services that would be needed. So we start to look and say, okay, we need the kernel to be in operation. We believe the kernel is the way forward, for example. So let's implement it. Anything that's in dark green is something we would implement. And we'll go to the right, and we see that we have a base module. We also talk about having a decentralized application. So we'd imagine that post-it where we had a UI, potentially some services layer, access to maybe some contracts and to modules that allow us persistence, again, chat and privacy. We eventually tie those to, if in our current world, if we were developing a module, we would have verbs for it. We have, for example, Waku or LN. We have the chat SDK coming along, for example. So in those, we have verbs. We would expect that we would be able to stick to the functionals and have our reliability and have our performance measures agreed with the customer of this voting app, for example. And ultimately, if we're doing it within a certain window of planning, we have a milestone. And that milestone is where we effectively come back to an agreement with finance to say, this is being funded to this extent, and here is the promise and the intent that is coming from the project against the milestone. Okay, so brushing on quickly here, we can see all of these various green ones. We can have kernel, we're going to have skeleton stack, execution proxy, base module out of the box. We might have multi-node capability, and ultimately we may have even some funding app built at the bottom. Now, when we look at services here, we spoke about the likes of Waku, Codex, Nomos. I've just focused on the chat SDK here as an example where we might need to have the realization of Orlen, the Waku SDK bolted in, and some third-party integration. We are talking at this point about a voting app. So what we're showing here is for one particular app, we have a low-level, a very coarse layer where we talk about these blocks like I did in the post-it. But when we get to the actual delivery and mapping it out, we talk in terms of delivered modules having particular functionality with particular reliability and particular performance associated with it, and tracking it using our existing framework, which is our milestone framework. And of course, I guess, as we have at the moment, we would expect to be having frequent demos of these type of applications in our every other week with our town halls and showing them internally, but also showing them to the community that would actually be interested in building on the platform. Now, my last point here, so I'm out of time, but it's really my journey, our journey from taking a journey and breaking it up into components in terms of our awareness, our adoption. And you see top left here, we start to say, for each piece of work we have, we're really targeting outcomes. This is a new world. We want to be building software that is valuable and has somebody waiting for it. Okay, so as we go from the first interaction down to the bottom here, where we talk about the advocacy, we're continually adding more components and more modules. Eventually, we effectively have a catalog of reusable, curated software where we work as a group, as a set of collaborators. Also, we may have external folks. We may have additional parties, I should say, wanting to build. We have people at the moment, Railgun, others, who build on top of Waku. We would expect those partners to be engaging with us and telling us, helping us to understand what components are needed, what additional modules are needed to realize a value and an outcome. So as you can see here, we continue from that top left-hand corner with our interaction to the bottom right where we have our advocacy. And really what we're doing is we're moving to the world of thinking, being active, passionate, creative, and taking initiative. And it really is about us as a group seeing this potential vision and saying, yes, we can take our current vision from the logos in the wiki all the way through to an expanded view. And we can see when that would happen by being able to size components, come up with different fidelity to make software available. So that was the key points, folks, on this presentation. And we had Ashwin here as well, in terms of from the finance perspective. Anything you wanted to add on this one?
Yeah, thanks, Leonard. So I think, at a high level, in this journey from projects and high level outcomes to journeys and use cases, and I think you described it as modules as well. I think the idea is that finance, historically has more been viewed as a cost control mechanism, but we want to be seen and contribute as a value creation and value measuring function. So, volume. I think modules definitely becomes our new value units as well. So the idea is that we want to track, even at the lowest level, at the lowest module or lowest level module, what value is being created, and not always just evaluating, at the forefront, how is the voting app generating revenue, but ensuring that revenue trickles down all the way to the lowest level module and the team that's working on it to actually quantify and show that we've identified their value and the add-ins. And I think that becomes very important because more often than not, those you could say module teams don't necessarily get the attention that it needs. And when it comes to, the opportunities to scale, we don't necessarily have quantifiable metrics to identify the value generation. So the idea here is to shift that logic and move toward identifying the value generation at the lowest level, identify what's gaining traction, ensure that it's getting the investment it needs to grow. And if there's something that is strategically important but struggling, the idea is that we find a way to support it financially and ensure that the entire stack remains upright. But yeah, no, thank you, Leonard. I think, that's it from my side.
Thank you, folks.
Yeah, I can come in here just to add on to that. None of that, if all that didn't make perfect sense to you, I'm going to be spending a good portion of my time at the all hands trying to painstakingly go through this and link it together, because a lot of what's been asked for, even JB mentioned it, is communication and vision on what we're trying to do. And I think if we could paint the picture of where we're trying to go, which I keep calling kind of the North Star, and how everyone fits into that, which is a lot of this is trying to give that picture of how these different initiatives fit together towards some application that people actually use and care about. And then from the kind of sustainability factor of how the value of this thing people care about trickles down to the differentiated initiatives that come together to make that happen needs to be understood. So somebody working on something that doesn't have an immediate understanding of this makes money, we need to be able to see that it's valuable to the thing that does make money or sustainable or is useful towards a greater goal. So this is part of our larger effort to try and help show that, link it together, make it useful, track it, so on and so forth. And like Leonard said, this is a proposal. This is an ongoing kind of work on how we think about doing this. And at the all hands, we'll be diving into this significantly more to try and make it more easy to understand and keep going. So thanks guys for coming on and talking about it. Back to just me and my big face. What else we have here? So next we have a couple more demos from the Waku team, starting with Danish, demoing some things from JS Waku, which got quite a lot of love and use from the internal hackathon. So Danish, you want to come on and show us what you got?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Thanks, Corey. So following is the demo of using JS Waku that we did 2 weeks ago internally. And this is going to be a developer walkthrough. So if you don't write code, it's still going to be interesting to see how the developer experience looks like. Thank you, Vaishnav. Welcome everyone to this presentation on building decentralized apps with JS Waku. My goal today is to walk you through a practical step-by-step approach to building with Waku, we'll be building a decentralized messaging app. We'll be using JS Waku, which is a TypeScript implementation of the Waku v2 protocol, written primarily for browser environments. Waku is a protocol designed for peer-to-peer messaging, perfect for our case of decentralized applications. Instead of just discussing theory, we'll actually build a complete React messaging app. Sorry, I'm just reading a comment. I'll just go ahead. Instead of just discussing theory, we'll actually build an application. And by the end, you'll understand how to implement core decentralized features that Waku offers. Real-time push and retrieval of messages, history retrieval, and application level encryptions. So we'll start with a clean, modern React project using White. But feel free to use whatever framework we want.
You know, we can blow that up.
White
It's a
gives
little
us a
small.
fast development
Oh
experience.
no, it's a video. Never mind. Just kidding.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And offers hot module replacement, which usually should be a good way to get started. TypeScript provides us type safety. Now, this foundation ensures that we have type safety, we catch errors before runtime, instead of just relying on plain JavaScript. And for each slide, we'll see a view code on GitHub link. And here, this is a public repository that I created with all of the stuff that we'll go through in the presentation being segregated into steps. So for initial setup, I already have this set up here, and let's actually CD into the first and run this. And this is just going to spin up our White plus React code base. Now moving on, now we add the JS Waku SDK to our project, and this is the core library that we will use. The key concept here is that the Waku Lite node is a lightweight implementation suitable for browsers, so it does not rely on relay like our service nodes. We connect to the default Bootstrap fleet that we've hosted, but we will learn in the future slides how we can actually not rely on this fleet and use our custom nodes. Moving forward, we just start the node and we wait for that node to connect. This is actually optional for now because we're bootstrapping our node. Similarly, for this, we can go to GitHub and check out at this step. And let's actually try to do that to Waku node. And we run that, and we should see information about our Waku network, Waku node trying to connect to the Waku network. Yeah, so here we see we are now connected to the Waku node. We're starting to find some peers. There are logs spinning up. And moving forward, this is actually this might seem like a small step, but it's crucial for a good user experience. So by default, each time the app starts, it generates a new peer ID for our Waku node. We implement persistent identity here by storing a seed in the local storage, and the seed generates the same private key each time the app starts. So we can choose to use a custom seed, which will create the Waku node with a fixed peer ID. Moving on, here is how we define the message structure that we will use throughout our applications. We're using protocol buffers here for just efficient binary serializations. This makes our message a bit smaller and faster to process than JSON. So here we're defining a very simple schema. We have the timestamp of the message sent, the sender itself, and the message string. And down below, we create both encoders and decoders using our content topic. So think of content topic like channels in the Waku network. It determines who receives which message. Moving forward, we now set up basic UI components that essentially just stitches together all of the logic that we've built so far. Let's actually check this one out because we'll finally have some UI going. Yeah, so we now have this application where we now have an option to initialize our Waku node with a random seed or use our custom seed. And the node is not yet initialized, of course. So let's actually try to use a custom seed, initializing Waku node. Give this a second. We see some logs spinning up and we have our application running. So this is what our structure for the app will look like. This is only step 4. We're only on step 4 so far. And some of the features we've made structure for here will be implemented in the later steps. But what we're looking for right now is that the peer ID here is being generated. We're connecting to 20 peers. And let's actually go ahead and try to also use a different seed. I forgot what peer ID it was. So we'll do this one more time and we'll keep a track of the peer ID that it generated. So it ends with 27. And let's now use a completely different seed. Shouldn't end with 27. That's our only criteria. Awesome. It ends with TE. So safe to say we've been able to initialize our node. We have set up our encoders, decoders. We've defined a message structure that we will use in the next slide. Now comes the part where we actually use that message structure and send messages using light push. So light push enables clients, Waku light node clients to send messages. Here your browser Waku node uses a full service node, which is usually our NWaku, the NIM implementation of the Waku node, or the Golang implementation of the Waku node that's running. And light push essentially sends this to the full service node, which proxies the light client's request and sends the message into the network using relay. This is perfect for browser environments where the resources are limited. We serialize our message using protocol buffers, and we'll just send it through the network using the light push protocol. This implementation follows an asynchronous pattern with async await. And let's try this bit. So we want to go to light push and just start the server. This time I just initialize with a random seed. We are on the right step. And we now see an option to enter our name. This is a test message from the Waku workshop. And we don't have a filter implemented yet, but ideally in the next step, we should see this message popping up in the filter tab. And just as a side note, we'll also talk about it in the later slides. We'll see a lot of logs here, a lot of errors, but this is common. This is nothing to be worried about. Moving forward to actually receiving these messages with filters. So to receive messages, we're going to use Waku's filter protocol. Filter allows clients to subscribe to specific content topics. When a message arrives, we deserialize it from the binary back to our message format. And we use React state to store and display the messages as they arrive. The subscription patterns use callbacks to process each incoming message. And this is the actual callback that we're passing to the filter subscribe. And yeah, we can handle errors here. let's see how that works. That's going to be 6. Okay, cool. We have 3 connected peers, 4, and let's try to send a message. Hey, this is a test message. All right, that did work. Okay, awesome. So yeah, there's a duplicacy here, but this is essentially how our messages will start to flow in, and they just seem to keep coming in. But we get the functionality that we're talking about here. Note that this was actually an application layer that is making the message render again. This is fixable on application layer, and perhaps by the time you're watching this, this will be fixed on the actual GitHub code base. Moving forward, what if a user joins the chat after messages were already sent? So filter and light push allow us to, in real time, send and receive messages. But as we saw, we had already sent some messages in the past that were not retrieved. This is where store comes in. And we just start with the node.store, waku.store, we access store, and then there are a couple of query methods available, but this is one of the more straightforward ones where we pass the decoder that we expect to be used, and there's a callback attached to process the Waku message. So we decode the message, and then we do whatever, which in our case is going to be rendering it in our retrieved messages tab. We can also go ahead and use some pagination, set some time-based filtering, and the type for this also comes from Waku SDK. So feel free to just command click onto the type to view what all we can specify. Let's actually test store before we move forward. Just ensuring we're running on time. Cool. We initialized our node. Waiting for, so we see this particular log, which essentially waits for the node to connect over store. And seems like we are connected to a decent number of peers. Now this button here will load our history for our particular content topic. No messages yet. That is not true. So we do see store working well on the logs. Awesome. So yeah, these were some of the messages I sent over the over today, and this is marked with the store flag, so we know how to distinguish between the messages that are live received from filter and the messages that we received over store. Moving forward, encryptions. So privacy is a core feature of many decentralized apps. We implement 2 types. We offer 2 types of encryptions: asymmetric, using a public and private key pair using SEs, ECIES, and symmetric, shared key based encryption. So asymmetric is great for direct messages between known users. Symmetric works well for group chats where everyone perhaps has the same key, and where you just import this actually gets imported from message encryption. So Waku/message encryption instead of SDK. This will also be fixed by the time you get onto trying this. But yeah, so you import these methods, and we create a new encoder from our SEs library and pass it our content topic and the public key. Similar for the decoder, and we use these encoders and decoders the same way we used them for plain text sending and receiving. Similarly, for symmetric key encryption, we import this also from Vaku/message encryption, not from SDK, or maybe it is re-exported. We'll have to double check on that. We create a symmetric key. We create an encoder for that symmetric key and also a decoder. And just as a all of these steps and their code bases will be attached. I'll share them in the comments and will be attached somewhere in the description or somewhere down below. But for now, let's just see how it looks, how we use them. So yeah, let's wait for this to get initialized. And we see this little toggle here down below. So by default, every message that we're sending is unencrypted and also receiving. So our decoder, if it receives an encrypted message, will not be able to process an encrypted message because we do not have access to the key we want to use to decrypt it. So we enable it and we see two options. We can use asymmetric or symmetric. And there's a little steps written down below here to just ensure. So the idea is we generate our own key. Now we export it because we want to paste it in a separate browser. For the scope of this presentation, I'll just not do that. And you want to actually do this. We generate our keys here, we export it so it's copied to our clipboard, and the idea is we'll paste this key in our peers tab. And here we paste the hex key for this peer, and this is imported. Perfect, this is ready to use, but also we want to export this key and import it here. Right now we're ready to use, we're encrypted with SEs. And the other sort of encryption that we can try here is symmetric. So we generate our key and we export it. Similarly, we import it in other tabs. So we're getting very close where we're mostly done with discussing what all we can do. But one important detail throughout building the application is going to be how do we debug things, right? We implement a very simple toggle for now within our UI that just enables Vaku logs in the background that you were probably seeing through my screen share. And all it does is just like sets a key value in the local storage. We use debug and then just Vaku star. So we're essentially printing all Vaku related logs. And these are segregated with info and error. So feel free to do something like Vaku. So feel free to do something like Vaku star info and then star so that you only capture info-based logs, or similarly for error, we can do that. And we have we've done a simple toggle so that you don't have to worry about this, or at least don't worry about setting it in local storage manually. One important thing I would like to highlight is I had Honey installed as an extension, and it would always overwrite my debug the debug key in my local storage. So make sure none of your extensions are overwriting local storage. So I do have it enabled here, and we see this little toggle. And just to verify, yeah, so we see Vaku info-based logs. If I do disable it, it will reload because local storage needs to fetch it from local storage again. And yeah, we don't really see any Vaku-based logs. All of these logs are just console logs and console infos within my application. And let's see, let's just enable it again, initialize, and we start to see Vaku info-based logs. We'll also probably see some Vaku errors. If you actually, let's just try to filter Vaku error. So yeah, that is how we debug. And there's something we briefly touched upon, I think in the first or the second step, is to, you're probably initializing Vaku with the default bootstrap field. This refers to the fleet of nodes that we as an organization or maybe independent contributors have initialized. And the idea is your JS Vaku node needs at least one node to start finding more peers. And if you do want to run your own node and not rely on Bootstrap Fleet, or for whatever reason you want to try your own node, you define the multi-address, and Zoltan in his presentation will talk about how you will do this. But essentially, you do get a multi-address from the node, and we change default Bootstrap to false, and we pass these set of our own nodes as a value in the Bootstrap nodes key in our config. Or you could choose to have this true and also use this. So you also find nodes from the public fleet, and you use your own node. This is pretty much it for our presentation. The JS Waki documentation is linked here. The protocol specs and the full source code for the entire app that we built through this presentation. And one final look of how this. Yeah, actually, the 9th step was the Rust. So we've already seen how this application looks towards the end. Just as a last walkthrough, we have an option to generate our Vaku peer ID through a custom seed or initialize it with a random seed. Test seed, and let's initialize. Now starts to find some peers. This is our persistent peer ID. Here we can retrieve things from the store. Here we can send messages. Hey, from workshop. And yeah, we can enable encryption and disable debug logs. Awesome. This is pretty much it for me. Do we have any questions? We do have a few minutes left. I'm curious.
We do not have questions because that was a video. Dennis is here though. I want to bring him on real quick. Yeah, thanks for that. That was great. Is there anything you want to add to that since that was a video and you just watched it?
Yeah, I think just one quick point around. I'm receiving some feedback, I think, from your end, but one thing to highlight is the Vaku network fleet that gets initialized automatically when we default Bootstrap true is facing some problems right now. The team is working hard to resolve that. So if you run into troubles around the network, some nodes not connecting, that is expected for now. That's the only highlight I would share. I think I can't hear you, Cody.
Yeah,
but I
as
see
Samuel
the
put nicely,
question.
when troll box.
What's a troll box?
What's a troll box? It's basically an anonymous chat inside of a web page. Like I used to have a lot of these in like exchange sites. So like you'd be doing trading and then just be a little chat box of everyone doing it. So it's like putting a little chat box inside of a web page.
Oh yeah, that'll be pretty cool.
We used to have one a
for
long
the
time ago.
upcoming- I think for the upcoming OP-Chan logos POC that we're planning to do, maybe we add that there.
You'd be surprised how popular those things are. Everyone just, it was very simple to just put a little troll box in your website, run off of Waku. A lot of people would do it.
That'll be cool.
Yeah, thanks, Dash. That was great. We don't have time to do our Cindy's video, so we're going to push that off to the next town hall. I will keep the links in this town hall, though, if you'd like to go look at it beforehand. The video is a bit quiet, so I'm saving your ears for this town hall at least. Go watch it. It's great. STS is interesting and very neat. I have a few minutes. I can briefly go over some of the posts we've had over the past 2 weeks, just to kind of give it a highlight of like show all the publications we're doing. We're doing a good amount of like public broadcasting and communications across the organization. Hard to keep up with, so I try to aggregate them here in this, and hopefully the description as well, so that people can just have it in a central place. Go check. So it's just a quick highlight overview. all the Logos blogs are doing monthly updates. So if you would like to get kind of just a general gist of what's happened in each of the Logos projects each month, they've been doing monthly updates on the blog. They do all these updates in the weekly roadmap, so you can go check nitty-gritty details there. But if you want a kind of a nice polished blog, easy to consume, neat graphics and visuals, go there and check them out. Samuel did a great post on the idea of encryption backdoors and how they're a non-starter to any real level of privacy. It becomes kind of privacy theater in the event there is a backdoor, and why status is something you can truly rely on. So go read that. If you don't understand why backdoors are a non-starter, you should, especially working for this organization. So go check it out. Nomos team did a few posts on how the native ledger works and the concept of notes, and which is a way to transfer information between native zones. And then additionally, some of the analysis behind data structures on how you then spin these notes from a technical perspective, and the kind of how to efficiently do this, and kind of implementation considerations on trying to make that work and be scalable. So both two really good blogs. Codex has one around the roadmap that discusses kind of where they are today and their plans to get to mainnet and what you can expect and how to participate and join and get ready. And additionally, we have a number of forum posts. So not only do we do blog posts, we do a bunch of forum posts across, for now, at least, VAC forum and the status discuss. As always, Frank does a number of Flurry posts across different places. He introduced the idea of the private chat SDK and the skeleton roadmap for that. It is an excellent example of what planned work looks like, how the resources get allocated, how different parts of specifications come into play. Highly recommend it, and also gives you a good idea on the roadmap, like the amount of work and roadmap it takes to get to an abstracted away chat SDK that can be used across the board. Then we have a ZK post around a kind of a warning around not just relying on zero knowledge technology so much with the infinite inflation glitch by Marvin. Frank did a proposal for decentralized OpChan. We're running out of time, so go check this out. Lots of good posts. That's it. See you in 2 weeks, guys. That was great.